Was kann man lieben Freunde, euer Nulli und herzlich willkommen zu einem neuen Haus im Fata Morgana Let's Play. Ja, meine lieben Freunde, wir sind heute in der 72. Folge und letztes Mal hat so ein Typ eine Carriage Earth abgeschlachtet und das war der nächste Teil der Witch Tale oder so, wie man es nennen möchte. Und jetzt sind wir wieder back into the reality, back in the Gegenwart. Wrapped in absolute darkness. Warm blood spills onto my cheeks, my hair, my skin. Chunks of human flesh rain down on me. Make it stop! Pitter, patter, pitter, patter. There's no end to the deluge. The smell of death fills the air. I'm struck with a wave of nausea so strong I can't hold back the contents of my stomach. But when my mouth opens to vomit, blood pours into it. Yo. Yeah, let go of me! Dead bodies scrap at my ankles, dragging me down. To where? Hell or the mountain of corpses?
Now, do you understand that there was a time? If but briefly, when I was happy, when I felt human emotions, but I wish I never had. If I had remained confined in my daughter of gold shell, then I doubt I would have felt so much terror at the sight of death.
I can't say anything in response. Okay. I can't form words. I feel what she experienced, the massacre she witnessed, the limp flesh piling up around her. Even more than twice her age. It's enough to drive me mad. The fact that a 12-year-old girl had to experience something so unspeakable devastates me.
Tell me, my dear, do you pity me? Do you sympathize with me? If you feel bad for me, then you'll remain with me. You'll feel my pain and my despair with me, won't you?
Good. Yo. The witch's cackle echoes through the pile of bodies. There's not a speck of light. And hideous death.
Ich glaube, das Lachen von Morgana ist das einzige so Voice-Acting, Anführungszeichen, was es im ganzen Game gibt. Glaube ich.
Nicht sicher. Ich glaube, es gab mal so einen Schrei.
Ja, okay.
Helpless to resist, I'm dragged down into a deep dark ocean. An ocean of blood.
Tor 7.
Weiter geht's.
Now, on with the story. I was complete loss for some time after that. I didn't want to return to the city, because I knew there was no one left who would take me in. There was only the Lord, who had bound me and drained me of my blood. So I wandered the roads, no destination in mind and nothing to defend myself but the cuffs on my back. Frankly, I'm rather surprised I wasn't attacked by bandits. After walking for days without food or water, my mind was hazy and my exhaustion at a peak. In the distance I saw a lake, so driven by my thirst, I turned my unsteady feet toward the water, not caring that it took from me off the main road. And it turned out that That was the correct choice because there was a small cottage beside the lake. Smoke rising from the chimney, telling me it wasn't abandoned. Out of sheer desperation, I knocked on the door. No one answered. The door was locked, so I slowly, hesitantly pushed it open. And beyond it, I found an old woman sitting dead in a chair. The woman was a witch by trade, it is. It appeared she had a deep knowledge of medical herbs, using it to make an assortment of medicines. In her cabinets were dozens of small glass bottles containing dried, powdered leaves and crushed berries, among other things. On the fire was a cauldron, liquid bubbling inside. The woman looked as though she was asleep. Presumably, she had passed away of old age, for there was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage, and she had a look of absolute serenity on her face. Looking over the woman's dead body, I didn't cross myself. I envied her. Dragging the woman's body by her feet, I dumped her into the lake. Do you think doing so makes me a bad person? Makes me unsaintly? Well, I didn't have anywhere else to go, and the owner of the cozy cottage is no longer of this world. There was no reason I couldn't fill the home in her stead, was there? Wenn sie in die Lake wirft, dann wird sie doch irgendwo aufgespürt oder so.
Mein Haus.
I deserved to have somewhere I felt comfortable after everything I'd been through, didn't I? Vielleicht wird ihr jetzt irgendwie der Mord angehangen oder so ein Scheiß. And so I looked up residence in the old witch's cottage. I took up and remained there until my 16th year, also noch 4 Jahre. Time's good. By 16, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had no trust for people. I shut them out, building high walls around myself. After such tumultuous, bloody childhood, it was all I could do to protect myself, to keep my young spirit from cracking. Nevertheless, travelers could on occasion pay the old witch's cottage a visit, seeking her medicines. Whenever someone arrived, I would cautiously crack the door open, telling them they could trade for whatever they wanted with food and never showing my face. One day a young man showed up at the cottage. My sister
has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine.
He was very soft-spoken. There was a distinct kindness in his voice, which I thought unusual, curious. What kind of person could he be? What did he look like? What expressions did he make as he spoke? To satisfy...
Wie bei Fujitora.
Yeah, this was nice. Ich hoffe, kommt wieder vor. To satisfy that curiosity, I snuck a peek at him through the crack in the door. He was a handsome young man with flowing flaxen hair.
Ja, das dachte ich mir schon.
Jo, so alle Masters sind schon mal so vorgekommen und die wurden reconstructed oder so. So Mel, Yukimasa und Jacob.
Ja, aber auch deren Familien. Aber es muss irgendwas Schlimmes passiert sein, weil die hasst sie ja so krass.
Ja. And upon seeing me, he didn't flinch back in disgust. He smiled. Also hier ist gute erste Impression, aber mal schauen. According to him, his younger sister had fallen gravely ill.
Ah, seine younger sister Nelly, ne?
And though and though they had tried a number of remedies, she was still bedridden. The medicines I gave him too had no effect, but he persisted in his quest, visiting me again and again for new combinations to try. Ich denke, am Ende ist es so komplett alles voll Blut übrigens, so wie bei Invincible, Staffel 1.
Maybe.
He wanted nothing more than to relieve even a slight bit of his sister's suffering. And moved by his dedication to his family, I too wanted to do anything I could do to help. For the first time in years, my world encompassed more than my small cottage. When the young man came, he would ask, that sounded richtig nice, ne? He would ask not only for medicine, but to go on walks with me. He volunteered to spend time with me. Despite my horrifying appearance, stimmt, appearance ist immer noch so schlimm.
Ja, Gesicht, ne?
Yeah.
It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful leg right here. Well, what do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline? Ja, da ist the body von der Oma.
Ja, aber das ist schon 4 Jahre her.
Ja, da ist ein
Obwohl,
Skelett.
das ist ja ein Lake. Das ist ja wie in Spoiler in Dark mit der Body, der dann am bottom of the lake immer noch ist. Ja, okay. He said with a smile, taking me by the hand. He spoke as we circled the lakeside. His voice was always soft and pleasant, like a ray of light shining through a crack in the walls. When I was with him, I felt like I could be an actual person, an ordinary girl. He talked about his sister more than anything, and whenever he did, he was at his brightest and most melancholy. The young man had been a member of a noble house, but disputes over who was the rightful heir had forced him and his sister out. Shortly after that, his sister had fallen ill and was now bedridden.
I'll take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one.
But also that miracle happened by the beliefs of the people, no? In the story here. That word muttered beneath his breath sparked my memory.
So, wenn es nicht klappt, dann so, your faith wasn't strong enough.
I was a saint. My blood had healing properties. I had no reason to hesitate. Someone needed my help, and who deserved it more than this kind-hearted young man's sister? So I decided to tell him what I really was. That my blood had miraculous powers. That I had saved people. That the moment I had been born, the drought plaguing my village had come to an end. That I had been known as a saint, the daughter of God. I told him everything. And he believed it all. He led me to his house, where a pale, sickly young girl lay in bed. She was a sweet little girl, with the same flaxen hair as her brother, who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. It was touching to see the two siblings sitting there together, quietly holding each other. I would gladly give my blood for the two of them. And so I made a new cut on my arm, which had healed considerably thanks to the slave and the woman of the brothel. Denkst du, sie wird irgendwie betrayed von denen oder so? Weil, wie gesagt, das
Ja, ich glaube,
Ich glaube,
es wird einfach nicht funktionieren, weil
ich meine nur, bis jetzt sind die ja freundlich zu ihr. And let the girl drink of my blood. Neither of them had any doubts about my sainthood, and because they believed, a miracle occurred. The flaxen-haired girl recovered enough to get out of her bed.
ja.
I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like for once I had actually saved someone's life. The only issue was she didn't make a complete recovery. For a few days after drinking my blood, she was in good health, but her condition quickly regressed.
Ach so, und Matt hat sie jetzt immer wieder so aufgeschlitzt, um seine Sis zu retten.
So crazy. I was deeply perplexed by this. A miracle had undoubtedly taken place, but it was only temporary. Now, though, I believe I can explain what happened. Also jetzt im Nachhinein so. Her recovery was nothing more than a placebo effect caused by her faith.
Wie bei jedem anderen.
Wusstest du, es gibt auch so einen Nocebo-Effekt. Das ist, wenn man sozusagen, man denkt, man hat Gift oder so getrunken. Weißt du, das ist das Gegenteil.
Ja, aber das ist doch basically auch Placebo.
Nein, weil Placebo ist gut und ein Nocebo ist schlecht.
Ach so, wusste ich nicht. Aber ich dachte mir so, ich trinke einen Drink.
Mhm. But that's something I couldn't have known at the time. We were all three perplexed, and we were all three disheartened. Nevertheless, I was prepared to give her my blood as many times as needed. Whenever her condition worsened, the young man came to request more, and never once did I turn him away. On the contrary, I enthusiastically offered her my services. Over time, though, the hopes in his eyes began to fade. He asked me on fewer walks, and he seemed hesitant to look me in the eye. I assume it was out of discomfort, out of guilt, out of shame about asking for blood. But I don't think his concern were for me, rather himself and his sister. As I mentioned earlier, blood was considered unclean in our time, and not only was I giving mine away, I was having his sister imbibe it. Looking at it that way, it would hardly be a surprise for him or anyone else to think that what I was doing depraved. As time passed, the flaxen-haired young man seemed to grow more and more disturbed by me. That was what I got for opening up. That was what I got for letting his kind, warm light shine in on me. The moment things went bad, he pulled away. There were times when I thought I shouldn't have done anything in the first place, but regardless, I held fast to my original decision. I would put myself on the line for them. No one else, just them. Even if he was afraid of me or had no interest in seeing me, I would continue offering her my blood. And I was firm in my resolve. One day, though, I received a new visitor. Oh, the young man was still the only one I would show my face to, the only guest I had let into my walls. So as usual, I took the man's request from behind the cottage door, but I could hardly believe my ears when he began speaking.
Are you the witch with the miracle blood?
First, how did he know my blood had powers? Second, why had he called me a witch and not a saint? Third, why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slave carriage?
Oh mein Gott, das war Yukimada, maybe.
Oh shit. I told the man he had to leave.
Weil der war ja so crazy, ne?
Das hat zu machen. That I would not be opening the door for any reason. In response, he said,
I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little?
my blood was for the sick and needy. I would never spare a drop for a murderer like him. And I told the man exactly that, demanding he leave. All I could think about was the pile of bodies, the fountain of blood. The man drenched in crimson, wearing a ghastly smirk. I trembled behind the door, fearing he may go on another such rampage. But instead he gave a simple,
As you say.
and went on his way. I let out a deep sigh of relief.
Jetzt macht er Bodypaint. Ne?
Which is when I realized tears were rolling down both of my cheeks, maybe. Like an ordinary girl. 3 days later, the flaxen-haired boy showed up at my cottage.
I'm sorry for being so distant lately. I want to talk things over.
Those 2 sentences were like a light shining from above. I wanted to talk to him too. I wanted to take a walk around the lake and listen to him talk about nothing. I wanted to experience the warmth of his world once more. So was Ähnliches haben Giselle oder Bill übereinander gesetzt und talk about nothing. So.
Ich glaube, ich habe die Schwester dead ist jetzt schon.
Possibly, yes. And I wanted to tell him about the terrible man who had been there a few days earlier. About how scared I had been. I wanted him to tell me it would be alright.
I want to talk to you too. Ah. Sagt die Witch.
Echt?
Ja, natürlich. Wenn er zuerst
Okay,
was
yeah.
sagt, dann
I want to talk to you too. I said, opening the door without a second thought.
Oh.
The light of the sun was so bright, all I could make out was his silhouette. Sind das wie die Silhouetten? Vielleicht nur so bei den Keys. I couldn't see the look on his face or the look in his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past, and my mind froze. How could this be happening? What did it mean?
Hat er so Knights geholt oder so, um sie zu verkaufen oder so ein Scheiß?
Why? How? What was that man doing, standing behind him?
Yukimasa.
Why was he carrying a sword? Why was he coming into my house? And why did he swing it down? Oh, severing my arm. Yo, man, I was in a daze. I couldn't make sense of anything. I didn't want to. My left arm fell to the floor before I even knew what was happening, and then my legs gave out.
Yo, what the fuck?
The pain, the backstory is crazy. The pain, searing and unbearable, came a few moments later as I was laying in an ever-expanding pool of my own blood. I did something that I hadn't done before, that I had resisted doing no matter how much blood the Lord had stolen from me. I screamed. It was a hideous visceral noise. Ja, kann ich jetzt nicht so gut nachmachen. A sound I had
Unlimited.
A sound I had never thought a saint could make. Apropos so, das ist ja so basically ein Buch hier oder so. Ich will auch mal so die Episode 3 Novelization lesen von Star Wars. Also es gibt zu dem Film gibt es so eine Novelization. Also.
Von?
Episode 3 Star Wars.
Ja, aber von wem?
Hast du von ihm geschrieben?
Ja.
Ich bin nicht sicher, wie der heißt. Ja. The same ear-splitting howl, the slave. Aber es wurde so gleichzeitig mit dem Film released oder so, glaube ich.
Oh. Gute Donne Male Lade.
Same ear-splitting howl the slaves had made as the man had butchered them. I writhed, I wailed, I wept, I crawled across the floor through my own blood.
Wie überlebte das
Ich wollte
jetzt?
gerade sagen, entweder sie stirbt hier und wird dann resurrected, oder sie wird jetzt
Ja, nee.
zum Sklaven gehalten. Und
Sie wird safe erst resurrected, wenn sie alle 3 getroffen hat.
Stimmt.
Also,
Oder vielleicht war... Nee.
Mel, das
Ja.
Ding ist, Jacobus hat halt immer so einen Hut und so.
I begged and begged and I begged and I begged for my life. Oder vielleicht kommt es nach der Resurrection oder so. Mit dem The man walked over and picked up my severed arm. Wollen die den Arm haben fürs Blut, aber das würde gar keinen Sinn machen. Das würde
Trocknet ja aus.
Shockingly, he tossed it to the kind-hearted young man, after which he said,
That's your share. Should last you long enough.
ja doch, Digga, die wollen echt das Blut vom Arm. So weiter.
Was?
Hast du weitergemacht?
Was?
Hast du weitergemacht?
Ja.
Warum hast du denn nicht so? Achso, ich denke, ich habe gerade da hingeschaut. Ich habe links oben nichts gesehen. Share? Ich habe ganz gewartet, dass hier was kommt. What did he mean by share? What was he talking about? Why had he given him my arm and why had he taken it? Yeah, it's so obvious. Why was he talking like they knew each other? Why? Why? I had spared blood for him when he asked, hadn't I? So why was he doing this? Was cutting my arm off and stealing it easier on his conscience than simply asking? Kann ich bitte deinen Arm haben? You understand how I felt, didn't you? You can put yourself in my shoes, can't you? Yes. The young man refused to look me in the eye. Holding my bloody arm in his trembling hands, he fled from the cottage as quickly as legs would allow. The man then walked over and picked me up.
Yep.
I had neither strength nor willpower to resist him. Man muss ihren Arm zubinden, sonst wird sie verbluten. Holding me in his arms, he began to speak, telling me things I didn't want to know, things I didn't want to hear. Ja, die Sache ist...
Sie kann jetzt nicht mehr die Ohren sich zuhalten. So wie Shanks.
Stimmt. Aber die Sache ist, wenn sie so damals also wenn es so in einer moderneren Zeit wäre, wo man so Blut spenden könnte, dann könnte sie ja viel mehr so Blut spenden, weil so schneidet sie sich einfach auf, weißt du? Naja. But he didn't care.
Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church. Chile? Pauline oder so? Wen kennt sie sonst? Kennt er sonst?
Don't take it personally? Tell me, is there anyone in this world who wouldn't feel a bit of spite after being put through such torture? Ja, den Arm abschneiden, ja, nimm's nicht persönlich. How was I supposed to let that slide? No one's that much of a saint. My trust had been betrayed, and I was supposed to turn the other cheek. A man had barged into my home uninvited and cut off my arm, and I was supposed to smile and take it? Is there anyone, anywhere, who doesn't feel even the slightest bit of hatred ever? Is there anyone in this world who could just laugh and brush off this level of abuse?
Ach, okay, alles gut.
Passiert. Tell me, is there? How could I not hold a grudge? How could I not despise them? How could I possibly forgive them? Tell me, please. Tell me, how could I?
She needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer. If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her.
The Lord? Why him again? Why couldn't he leave me alone? After trying to kill me during one of his blood Sabbaths, why was he after my blood once more? After he learned it really did have miraculous powers and decided he wanted me back?
You get to be the sacrifice. To keep her church from collapsing. To keep her world from collapsing.
Sacrifice? Excuse me, what? And what's all this about keeping her church from collapsing? You murdered a carriage full of innocent people, and you're trying to protect a church? You? Are you out of your mind? Churches are where people go to commune with God, to speak with my Father. How dare you soil his sanctified grounds with your filthy hands, you beast. It's insulting, sacrilegious, repulsive. Just what do you think we are?
So don't take it personally, witch.
What's that here? I'm not a witch. I'm a saint. I was a saint. My blood exists to do the Lord's work, not to satisfy the avarice of man. Why? Is this happening to me? The man brought me back to the city, but instead of taking me to the Lord's manor, he brought me to a church on the city's outskirts. Though, to be honest, it looked more like an estate than a church. The church also served as a hospital, offering free care to less fortunate children, the poor and the infirm. That was when I learned what he had said, why he had said they needed money. The owner of the church offered unconditional assistance to anyone who came. Even when food supplies ran low, they would ration their own in order to keep helping others. As a result, the church was perpetually on the verge of collapse. The church was run by a woman, something exceedingly rare for the time. There were no priests. All management was handled by a single nun, who everyone referred to as the Saintess.
By the way, hier sagt ja nochmal Time, wir wissen ja nicht genau, welche Time das ist,
Ja.
aber sie hat selber mal gesagt, es war nicht so weit entfernt von deiner, Michel.
Na gut. Ich meine, das klingt halt so. Ja gut. I was the saint.
Ja, das klingt so wie?
Ich dachte so, wie sie so gesagt hat, so, dass ihre Mom dass sie kennt, oder sie ist das Kind Gottes oder so, weißt du, so wie Jesus mäßig, dass es so um das Jahr 0 ist, dachte ich oder so.
Nein, safe nicht.
Aber I guess not.
Das kann ja auch Jahr 700 sein.
Okay. Why was this, oder Michel muss ja noch irgendwie in die Story hier reinkommen, ne? Why was this woman who didn't have the ability to perform miracles being worshipped like she did?
Denkst du?
Yeah. Why did the people of the city idolize her? Why were their smiles all directed at her? Why was I not in her place? The man carried me to the top of the observation tower.
Mhm.
It was there that I had my reunion with the Lord.
Mehr Blut, ne?
I was to spill my blood for the people of the city, but also for the Lord's prophet.
Guck mal, wie es auch so dunkel geworden ist an sich. Und nicht nur mehr Blut, sondern auch so mehr grau. Da braucht noch so orange, sag ich mal.
He was not offering free aid, but selling it as a medicine. He claimed it was a miracle elixir. Immer schon Elixier sammeln, Freunde. Telling no one that it was actually my blood. It was mixed with a beautiful red wine, and drinking it would cure you of any ailment. If it was actually the blood of a witch, if they knew it was actually the blood of a witch, they would think it was unclean. They would fear it. I remained imprisoned for a long time. In the beginning, the swordsman guarded me, though before long, the flaxen-haired young man showed up as well. Also es ist eine komplett andere Circumstance, aber es erinnert mich gerade so an Griffith, wie er so komplett am Arsch so gefangen ist, weißt du? So, ja, komplett bandaged up und so. Presumably one severed arm wasn't enough to keep a sister healthy for long. In listening to the conversation, I learned that to ensure no one else could get in, the observation tower was sealed with three locks, ne, die Treasures.
3 keys.
The Lord, the swordsman and the young man each had one of the keys. Okay,
warte mal.
Okay, warte.
Ja, okay.
Das sind die drei.
The Lord Jacopo, the swordsman Yukimasa and the young man Mel.
Ja, so muss es sein.
Okay.
I was their secret, locked away in the tower for them to drain of blood away from wandering eyes. Time went on and I grew progressively weaker. I lost the will to eat and the will to live. My only view from the tower was the clouds through the window high upon the wall. Occasionally a pigeon would fly in, sometimes a butterfly, and I would glare in envy as it fluttered around, free to come and go as it pleased. And soon it was spring. Every spring the church held a festival to pray for the coming year's harvest and the people's well-being. I could hear the bustle from far below through the window as everyone rushed to prepare. I heard a flaxen-haired girl's voice who had regained her health, drinking my blood. I heard her brother's voice who had betrayed me. I heard a nun's voice who played saint in my stead. I heard the barbaric swordsman's voice who had chopped off my arm. And I heard the Lord's voice, the root of all my suffering.
Also, wir können mal kurz zuordnen, und zwar, also ich habe da 2 Sachen. Erstens, vielleicht ist diese Nuns Voice Giselle oder so, bevor sie war, weil sie quält ja am allermeisten Giselle eigentlich im Moment. 100 Jahre lang immer so gequält. Flexen hat Girls Voice, ist ja einfach die Schwester, also I guess Nelly. Mel ist Brother, und dann ist I guess Giselle.
Ich würde auch sagen, hat Giselle, vergesse ich gerade eine Connection, so zu einer, dass sie irgendwie Non-Connection hat?
Nein.
Also haben wir eine so Nonne.
Aber nee, who played Saint in my stead? Wie sie sich selber als Witch ausgegeben später vielleicht, aber keine Ahnung, ich weiß nicht. Das hat aber Morgana ihr eingeredet eigentlich, dass sie die Witch ist. Ne?
Mal schauen.
Naja.
I heard people praising the Saintess, though I, the true saint, was locked in the tower. Bei ihm, und sie hatet so die Saintess, weil sie denkt, das sollte ich sein. I heard people... Genau, I heard people thanking the Lord for his generous donations and miracle medicine, though it all come from me. Propped up on my suffering, they cheered and clicked glasses of my bloody wine. Those merry, peaceful, cheerful, spirited sinner voices surrounded in my tower, resounded in my tower. And at noon, at the day of the festival, the church bell tolled. 1,
Cool.
2,
Sound.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And with the 12th chime, I died. Oh.
Yo, wow, schau mal.
Sieht man sie hier?
Guck mal, man sieht sie ein bisschen so.
Ja, das ist sie.
Boah, Alter. Guck mal, nur Haut und Knochen.
Und auch die,
Shackles
sind, ja, okay.
Ketten. Wie so ein Butterfly in der Kleidung. Boah. Ja, sieht ein bisschen aus wie Giselle.
As the bell's last pealing faded into silence, the tower door swung open.
Ja, wie die Maid, meine ich.
Standing on the other side of it were the 3 men. They must have wanted to drain a little more from me to use in the feast, but they arrived at the worst possible moment. The flaxen-haired young man was the first to express this consternation.
Why? I never wanted her to die. Also wirklich. Was she not eating?
Darf's ja nicht.
Was denn not eating, Bro? Siehst du das nicht? Hallo?
Ja.
Eieiei, Digga.
The Lord gave my corpse a casual glance, and I said stone-faced,
Seal the tower off. Understood? No one finds out about this. How can you be so calm? Do you understand what you've done? Ha! Pinning the blame on me? And nice it must be to be able to distort reality with panic.
Swordsman, who had been silently observing the Lord and the boy conversing, interjected.
You're just as guilty as any of us.
Not only did they not mourn my death, they argued over whose fault it was. There was no regret, no remorse. The young man muttered absent-mindedly.
I never wanted her to die.
What did his intention matter, though? It was his betrayal that had ultimately tethered me to this dimension. But the fact that they the fact that they didn't grieve my death and instead squabbled about themselves like filthy rats was the final straw. How could I not despise them? Aber sie hört es auch so noch, nachdem sie gestorben ist,
Kaum.
I don't believe I actually had the power to perform miracles when I was alive. It was all faith. The illusion of belief. I was neither a saint nor a witch. The blood wine was only effective because people placed the faith in the other saints. I was only ever human. But then, in that moment, jetzt mich resurrected sie, oder so? An actual miracle occurred. My father bestowed upon me his power. Or perhaps it was the devil who lent me his strength. I was looking down.
Ja.
Oh! My goodness! Das ist die allererste Line. Oh, ich hab ein bisschen Gänsehaut. Das war Morgana. I was looking down upon my... Obwohl, nee. Das war looking down upon my corpse, oder?
Ja, aber es ist basically das gleiche.
Okay, I was looking down on my own dead body, my own wretched self. There was nothing beautiful about the pile of bones I had become. Lass nochmal den Anfang anschauen. Bald, okay? Also die allerersten Lines of Dialogue.
Bald.
I could almost smell the rotting flesh. That was once a saint. I laughed at the thought. It was absurd, ridiculous,
That is.
and infuriating. They would pay. Those who had cast me into this hell, who had mocked me, who had done this to me, who had made a witch of me, out of me. Hatred cursed through me. Revulsion at everyone on these grounds still smiling. They would know just whose dead shoulders their little party was resting upon. If they wanted so badly to call me a witch, then a witch I would be. I would kill them, every last one of them. Place a curse on their souls, and so I made my wish. Most people might consider it a curse, but to me it was most certainly a wish. And my father, or maybe the devil, granted that wish. From the garden there rose a scream. The flaxen-haired young man knew that voice better than anyone.
Oh.
He went deathly pale, there darting down the spiral staircase until he reached the window. The young girl was on her knees, vomiting blood in the grass. The young man let out a yelp as he descended the remainder of the staircase.
Also die reale Witch ist vielleicht so dieser Devil oder Gott, von dem sie redet, ne? Weil das hätte ihm Wish erfüllt.
Jetzt so gespannt, ob sie meinte ja, you resurrected me, so Michael. As soon as he reached the garden, he lifted the girl in his arms. Sie wartet gerade die ganze Zeit darauf.
Aber das kommt nicht jetzt.
But she had already perished, ich glaube schon.
Nein, das kommt safe, als er erst zur Menschen kam. 1089.
Realizing this, he cried to the heavens, saying the one thing he should have kept to himself.
The witch killed her.
Achso, ja, kann auch sein. Aber das kommt noch in der Story, man.
The blood of the witch killed my sister. Und dann glauben alle daran, dass sie...
Ja.
Deswegen, es wurde immer so was erzählt, dass es eine ganze Ding ausgelöscht hat, ne? That wine you're drinking is no medicine. It's the blood of the witch. Ich will jetzt mal gucken, ob es immer noch heißt so. Blood of the Holy One, ja. You're drinking witch blood.
Crushed by the loss of his own family,
Only?
of his only family, the young man picked up a silver fork and plunged into his own throat, ending his life. Naturally, there was an uproar. Goblets of wine crashed against the earth in rapid succession as the people holding them fell to the ground and vomited or convulsed. The nun was the first target of the outrage. What she had claimed to be medicine had turned out to be blood, an unclean substance. The blood of the witch, no less. A servant of the church, a servant of the Lord, had given her followers blood to drink. And at this their indignation surged uncontrollably. The people surrounded her, tying her up and throwing her to the ground. As they prepared to inflict righteous justice upon her, the swordsman soared down the stairs and into the garden, plunging his blade into anyone standing near the nun. The cries of agony ringing through the church grounds were ear-splitting. It was no longer a place of God, but hell on earth. Hell built up by the hands of man. Hell painted red with the blood of their brothers. The people armed themselves with anything they could find and went after the man. As much of a beast as he may have been, he stood little chance against such numbers. It is the fate of a beast to be exterminated by those he terrorizes. And once he was gone, the nun had no one left to protect her. She too was consumed by their frenzy. All that remained was an inextinguishable inferno. Hysteria and despair, madness and outrage, and no outlet for it. It was a revolt that made the slaves' uprising at the Lord Manor look like a game. Eventually, their rage found a new target, the Lord. It was the only natural, for he was the true villain. He was the one who had given money and the witch's blood to the church. He was the one who had profited of it. And above all, people often resented those who stood above them, particularly in times of unrest. The city resounded with cries of the Lord's head. And he looked down upon it all from the safety of the observation tower. He could do nothing but watch as his domain burned. I can only imagine how painful that must have been. But before long, having seemingly made his peace, he began descending the spiral staircase. He opened the door at the bottom, revealing himself to his people. But before the door had swung all the way open, before he had the chance to say his final words, Someone ran a blade through his chest. With that, the raging furor mostly settled down, but it was hardly the end of the destruction. Mere days later, a plague befell the city. Dreadful black spots covered the flesh of the infected, so the pest. They writhed in pain, screaming and vomiting blood. The pest, the pest. Ghastly howls echoed through the streets, as though the whole city had been possessed. It became a cursed land. In their diseased haze, the people muttered again and again.
We have been cursed by the witch! Oh, muttered, idiot.
In less than a week, the entire city was dead. My body was left abandoned at the top of the observation tower. And as if to seal the curse away, in the final days, the people shuttered all the windows, wrapping the house in darkness. Right? It's possible that was no miracle either. You can easily explain what happened to them. Locked away for so long in that dirty tower, maybe I caught some kind of disease. And then when the people drank my blood, they too were infected. Hardly anything out of the ordinary about that. The first to die, the girl, had already been ill. Her blood merely chose the worst possible time to yield to her ailment. That was all that had happened. Indeed, it was nothing more than a fluke. An improbable stroke of luck. An unbelievable, unfortunate accident for the city and those 3 men. And an indescribably unfortunate accident for myself.
Das war am Anfang andersrum.
But I wish to believe it was a miracle. That even if my blood didn't have healing properties, and even if I wasn't a saint, my wish, my curse, was what caused that uprising. That was my miracle. Granted to me by God or the devil. I choose to believe that. And that my miracle took on its true form thereafter.
Boah.
My curse had brought death upon the 3 men, but for whatever reason, my rancor was far from sated. They had died, so what? Death is but transient agony.
Das hat sie ja gesagt.
It's nothing compared to what I went through. So I made my next wish. I waited for their reconstruction.
I wished
for their reconstruction. I wished eternal suffering on their souls. I wished to trap them in a never-ending cycle of pain and hatred. That was my wish for the flaxen-haired young man. He treasured his dear sister, and he desired a quiet life, so I wished for him to have just that, and I wished for his dearly beloved sister to love him more than anything in the world, for his world to be destroyed by love gone too far. This is my wish for the beast-like man. He was conscious of his tender tendency for violence, and he yearned to be more human, so I had his inner beast toned up just a little. I saw to it that he would never be human, so he would never have the peace he so desired. My wish for the Lord was more straightforward. He seemed to have great affection for wealth and authority, so I ensured that were the only things he would ever have. Who needs love or friendship when you could be drowning in power? Once he had lost everything, solitude would be his only companion.
Boah.
Wishes can come true, as long as you always hold fast. Never stop wishing, never surrender. They can come true. Eternal sufferings on all their souls. An endless cycle of reconstruction and unavoidable tragedy. Tell me, my dear, do you sympathize with me? Will you curse them with me? Will you take my hand and revel them with me?
Oh, können wir entscheiden? Nee, wir gehen zurück zur Gegenwart. Boah, Alter, ultra geiles Let's Play, Freunde.
Uff.
Holy shit.
So
Boah,
viel.
yo,
Boah.
die ganze Welt wird so Ding crazy. Nächstes Mal checken wir das ab, Freunde. Lasst Like und Abo da. Das war's anscheinend noch nicht, weil ich stehe noch Blood of the Holy One. Ja. Außerdem müssen wir noch sehen, wie Michi die resurrected. Lasst Like und Abo da, checkt da Past Videos, Stream ab. Und damit würde ich sagen, Freunde, wiederschauen und
reingehauen.
ciao.